Now, just before Special Squad, Sarah Green shows how to cope with an emergency.
Every day in Britain there are 45,999 calls. People involved in an emergency are often dazed and confused and don't know what to do. One of the things that throws a lot of people off balance is the sight of blood. Now don't worry, we're not going to show you anything too gruesome. But we've all of us got to learn how to ignore blood if we're going to be of any help to anyone. One of the first things to remember is that there's probably a lot less of it than there actually looks. Let's take an example with another strong-coloured liquid. This bottle contains just 1/10 of a pint of red ink. I'd like you to imagine that it's real blood, though. And if I pour it across this T-shirt, you can see how just a tiny bit spreads. Most adults can lose 30 times that amount before they're in danger. We're going to show you some scenes of people who are bleeding. They're reconstructions, it's not real blood. But it should give you a chance to work out what you do in a real emergency. Oh. Accidents like those could happen at any time. But what could you do to help? We called in an expert.
Well, the first thing to do would be to lay Fred down, because if he was to faint, he would injure himself, and the worst injury he's got already. The second thing to do would be to raise the limb above the level of the heart to stem the flow of the blood and keep it up that way. Second, then after that would be to put direct pressure onto the wound. To do it that way, with this size cut, you would need to put the whole palm across and really squeeze tight. If, of course, you didn't want to put your hand on it, you can use a rag. Let's say one like this that we could use to keep it pressure on that limb. You may well need to keep this on for some time. If there was somebody else around, you could get them to get the ambulance. If there wasn't, and Fred was conscious, then perhaps you get Fred to keep it elevated while you went and got the ambulance.
But is there anything we can do in the meantime to make Fred more comfortable?
Yes. Again, improvise mainly in the garage surroundings, but you'd need to lay him down in case he faints. You'd need to make him comfortable and make him warm. If he gets cold, which he probably will because of the shock, it could be just as much of a killer as perhaps, say, the injury itself.
Now, arterial bleeding is the most serious, isn't it?
Yes.
How would you treat that?
Again, in much the same way, even more so with the direct pressure, because the blood is coming straight from the heart.
What about applying tourniquets? Is that right?
We don't use them at all, and neither should the public, because in fact what happens, it cuts the circulation off to stop the bleeding. But if they're not released after a very short period of time, then the rest of the limb could die.
What about the little girl with the nosebleed?
Well, nosebleeds are quite commonplace, especially among children. In that case, just pinch the lobes of the nose at the back and lean forward. This will stop the blood coming out and give direct pressure, as we had in the earlier incidents. After about 10 minutes, it will stop anyway. If they continue over a longer period of time, it may well be necessary to go to hospital.
So remember, try to ignore the blood. If it helps, think of it as red ink. Put direct pressure on the wound as soon as possible and keep it there. Use a cloth pad if you can't bear to touch, but never use a tourniquet. Get someone to dial 999 for the ambulance. While you're waiting, keep them quiet, comfortable and warm, room temperature is fine, to reduce the shock. For a nosebleed, lean them forward and pinch the nostrils until the bleeding stops. If it's still flowing after 20 minutes, get them to hospital. Give a thought now about what you do. That way, if ever it did happen, you'd do the right thing and maybe save a life.
You would die for me, Mr. Duffy?
3, 2, 1, go.
Saracen, security that's deadly serious on ITV.
Now on Yorkshire Drama with the Special Squad and A Child of Fortune.